Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back to the Citrine Path. Today, again, we have myself, Amber, and my amazing co-host.
And I'm Patsy from Violet Elements. Before we get started here, we just want to share real quick that this is our journeys and our guest journey on their spiritual life and their herbal life. So, everything we talk about here, we do recommend you do your own research and definitely talk to your provider before you start any herbal remedies or home remedies.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Citrine Path. So today, Miss Mama Llama picked a topic for us, and I honestly really enjoyed looking this up. So we're going to be talking about colors and different ways they impact us, I guess, right?
Yeah, kind of in a nutshell.
So what made you want to pick this topic, Mom?
I'm not really sure. It was just one of those things that I was like, hey, let's do something with color. Um, but I kind of always found it interesting about how most American cultures or most people in the United States wear black to a funeral, where a lot of cultures don't. That usually they wear white. And so that's kind of what like started it, I guess. Just made me think like that's really weird. Um, how different different places or people think of color, and a lot of people don't really associate anything with it. They just like, "Oh, well, I like this color. I'm gonna wear the color," or, something along those lines. So I just thought it was interesting to, like, look into color. So, like, purple, most people associate, pretty much across the board with, like, royalty. And so then when I was looking into the color purple to figure out, like, why that was, it has to do with when they originally found the color dye was kinda, like, on accident of the color purple, and it was so hard to make at the time and so rare that it was so expensive that only royalty could afford it. So, that was the only people that had it originally, and then so that kinda stuff I thought was, like, super interesting.
Yeah, so I looked up more the psychology and like um behind the colors. So one thing I thought was super interesting was if you look at like the Food Network, okay? The Food Network's logo is orange. And orange makes you feel more hungry. So then even just the logo, like it entices you to feel more hungry while you're watching the show. I thought was really interesting. And when I was looking this stuff up, there was actually a story of a coffee shop and they were getting reports that everybody was saying it was too cold in there, that, they needed to raise the heat in the little coffee shop. So the walls were white, but it was more blue white. So they repainted the walls to more of like a yellow white. Didn't change the thermostat in the coffee shop, nothing like that. All they did was paint the walls, and all of the reports of it being cold in there completely stopped, which I thought was really interesting. Just the paint made it feel like it was physically colder to them.
Yeah, like, that's yeah, like, I love it because like, orange usually means, like, kindness and warmth. So most people I mean, that does make sense, like, most people, like, they'll walk into a home and they're like, "Oh, it feels so warm and homey," like so it's funny that you say that the Food Network, because that's something that most people associate with food. And then, yeah, white usually is, like, most people think is cold, snow, that kinda stuff. But going on the same thing, I think that's funny that why the McDonald's arch is yellow,
Yeah,
because
because it
it
wants you to feel happy.
usually represents happy and joy. Yeah.
And then the red too, because it's yellow and red. And then for me, I have red as passion, power, strength, energy, and love.
Yeah, sometimes you'll people will associate, like, anger with that, um, but, like, if you think about it, if somebody's overly passionate about anything, it could come across as being angry, like, usually it's kinda similar, in the way that it's presented.
Well, and then when I was looking this up, there was some like, I don't remember what her name was, but she was talking about how, when you're looking at the psychology of things, it's not gonna be the same for every person. She's like, yellow is supposed to be happiness, cheerful, like, happy things, but there could have been, like, somebody who had a tragic accident and, like, a the car was yellow when their dog got hit or something like that, and then all they see is the yellow car, and their brain automatically associates that feeling of pain and hurting with the yellow. So, like, that exactly, like, red could mean love from Valentine's Day when you were in elementary school to one person, but the other person, because this bully wore a red shirt, they associate that with something negative.
Yeah, absolutely. How about I just go through all of the colors
Go for
here
it.
real quick? So we just kind of talked briefly about red. Um, so red is usually associated with an intense emotion. So kind of like we were just talking about anger, danger, heat, passion. Orange is fresh, youthful, and usually associated with a creative color. It's warm, but because of the color, like the red and the yellow is what you mix together to make the orange. So usually it's some people associate the combination of both of those. It also usually has to represent energy. So most things, um, like the lightning bolts and stuff like that, usually like on an electrical fence or something, usually it's a slightly colored, similar to orange. Yellow. Yellow is usually associated with sunshine, sunflowers, optimistic, playful, and happy. It can also be associated with mental clarity or intuition. Green has two meanings. So usually it has a nature element to it because most people think of green, forest, plants, etc. But it also, a lot of people associate green with money. So it usually represents renewal, growth. It's usually associated with health and wealth, but also greed. So usually green, like people say like they're green with envy. So this is, they have, I don't, some of these they have like different names associated, like indigo, etc. But the light blue, pastel blue, usually is a calming color associated with nature also, or the ocean or blue skies. So most people associate it with clear water, so like a bright future, that kind of, sayings that go with that. Um, and green grasses because most people see this particular color and associate it with water, so then you water the grass, etc. But the color itself usually represents peaceful restfulness and involving refreshing your environment. So kind of the same thing, like cleaning, fresh air, blue skies, clear waters. Um, blue. This color has long been associated with royalty, art, and military. Usually, it's associated with business and nature, making this color the most appreciated or most adapted color, which I thought was interesting. And then purple is usually linked to imagination and spirituality, but it also stimulates with high goals, connections with others, or deeper thoughts. It unites the body, mind, and creative balance between the mental and physical elements. But again, is also linked to royalty, loyalty, which I thought was super interesting. But like royal blue, that makes sense that blue is also linked to royalty and military.
Yeah, that is super interesting. Well, and it's funny because when you're reading that, I have things on my list that are similar, but kinda different for each color. But then again, it just shows like everybody associates it with different things. So based off of what study they use the information from, yeah, it's going to be slightly different.
Yeah, and I did find a lot of, like, colored wheels type drawings, and it varied on the shade or how deep the color was. So, like, of course, if you take red and make it lighter, eventually you'll get to pink, and pink was all related to, like, uh, more playful stuff, like youth, um, stuff like that. So it was weird because, like, even some of the blue where before it was, like, business, if it went really, really dark, it added power and trust, but if it was super light blue, but not pastel, it was purpose.
That's interesting. Well, and let me talk about the
So,
pink
like
real. Oh,
yeah, go for it.
they said pink. They actually use it to calm angry prisoners. So in some of the prisons and stuff now, they're actually painting the bars of their cells pink to help calm them down. Um, which I thought was super interesting. And it wasn't like a bright pink, it was more of like a pastel-y pink. But what I have for pink is compassion, serenity, and sophistication, which would make sense. Like if they're locked in there away from everybody, if there's a color that makes them feel like they are being shown compassion and love and that they're cared about, that would probably make them calm down.
That's super interesting. Okay, so why don't you share what you found? Because your stuff seems to be a little bit more, like, interesting.
Well, those were the couple that I found like, oh, so blue, I guess, is a appetite suppressant,
Hmm.
which I thought was interesting. Um, I'm gonna have to start paying attention to like if I go to gyms or anything like that, like what color their walls are painted.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and like if you go to any like public transportation, airports, anything like that, nothing's ever yellow, right? Because yellow's supposed to be like cheery and happy and but it also makes people nauseous. So some people it has like the adverse effect on them. It makes them nauseous or like makes their head hurt or their eyes hurt, whatever. So that would make sense why nothing's painted yellow. You don't want people vomiting on the plane more. Um,
That's true. It can get very bright. I could see that.
yeah. And then what I thought it was interesting is I looked up how these affect us because obviously I always have to take it one step farther. So each color has waves just like a sound wave has, right? And each wave of each color is a little bit different. Like red is bigger, pink is a little bit smaller, but the same form because it's kind of the same color. And then it looks like some of them have higher peaks, some of them are like more straight. Anyways, so it goes through your eyeball, right? Because your eye has to take those in and then sends those waves to a little tiny part called the hippocampus in your brain. And that's what regulates your emotions and stuff like that. So that's how it can impact you so easily, which I thought was really crazy.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, so the
I
color.
had found Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. Tell us.
No, no, no. Go, go, go.
Oh, so the color red. She was talking about how if you look at the ties of presidential like elections and stuff like that, I always thought that people wore like red ties and blue ties to show like which party they're in. So apparently that ain't the case because this lady was talking about how um, like President Trump, Barack Obama, and one of the Bushes all used to wear a red tie every time they went out. And her thesis was the fact that it was to show that, they were powerful and passionate and they had strength, which I thought was interesting.
That is pretty cool. I found quite a bit of stuff on purple. Yeah. So I was reading one report by this lady and kind of like what you were just talking about. um, the different hues, how your eye takes that in, and so that will affect it too, or the level of saturation, so, like, how dark the color is or how dull the color is. But this one, the only color they pretty much did in this study that I came across was the color purple. But they did the same thing, like, they took, um, depending on how much red or blue was in it, changed how people perceived the color purple. So if it had more blue in it, it was usually more calming effects to it, or lower on the lower scale. If it had more red, it was most people took it as more higher energy, and it had less calming effect to it. So I think that's really cool that you were just talking about the red and blue ties. Kinda did the same thing.
That's really
Very
that's
few people what?
so that's really cool.
Yeah, very few people took it as like, it was hard for them to find an even mix. Either people felt one way about the color or the other. But they did find that it was most commonly used in spiritual things, had the color purple. It had a high triggering feeling for joy or inspiration. When used in excess, though, so like someone like me that has purple everything, they said that it found to be frustrating or even overbearing to people. So if they were like drawn to the color and they like made everything purple, that eventually it started having the opposite effect. Like it was getting too much.
That's really interesting. But, uh,
Yeah, so I
but that
guess
makes me think of
too much
any
of a good thing is too bad,
yeah, but I think that goes with everything. Like, if you listen to the same song over and over and over and over again, doesn't matter how much you loved it, eventually it gets old.
right?
Oh, so you didn't talk about brown real quick. I have brown. Um, and I thought it was kind
Oh,
of hel
I didn't yeah.
I think brown is funny. So it's dependable, rugged, trustworthy, and simple. So, like, automatically, I think of, like, a old cowboy wearing a brown hat and brown cowboy boots, like, they're rugged and dependable, trustworthy. I just thought that was cute.
Right? Most older men drive brown trucks.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even make that connection. That's true. That's funny. Oh, and then so one thing, white was clean, innocence, and honest is what I have for it. But then that made me, think of a hospital, right? Everything's white. The floor's white, bed's white, walls are white, all the instruments are white. I just think it's funny that it's clean, innocent, and honest. Like, of course you want your hospital to be clean. Of course you want everybody to think that you're being honest and, not hiding anything from them and to trust them.
That's very, very good point, yeah. So, another thing I came across in that report I was talking about earlier, um, how men and women perceive the color purple differently.
Oh, and
So
I was watching this thing and the lady was talking about how, um, the X chromosome actually allows you to see more shades of red versus the Y chromosome.
ooh,
So that would make sense why, because she was, like, talking and she was joking, like, "Oh, yeah, well, next time your husband, like, can't pick a shade of red lipstick out for you, don't blame it on him, it's because he has a Y chromosome and can't see the differences in the shade versus if you have an X."
that's interesting.
Yeah, and
And
women have or
most people
XX.
that are colorblind
We're doing the thing again.
I know we keep like there's a delay or something because we keep talking over each other. Okay, go again.
Uh, well, I was just saying women have XX, so that means we could really see red,
Most women are when they get angry, they get really angry. Maybe that's
right?
why too. But, most people that are colorblind, it's more common in men than women, so if they already have a restricted color band and it's just altered a little bit, that kinda makes sense too. But I thought it was interesting, they were saying that women who prefer the color purple are usually have a deeper sense of themselves or their spirituality. They seek peace, harmony, and protection and support. Men who prefer the color purple tend to be more spiritually expressive. They live life on their own terms and sometimes to the point of vanity. So
Oh.
I thought that was interesting that it meant different things. Like for the woman, it was like protective, supportive, and then it went the other direction for men. Oh, so you were talking about waves, like sound waves and electrical waves. Purple is the most difficult color. It has the strongest. Okay, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, so just bear with me. Electro, electrolomogram, electric, whatever wavelength. So that's the strongest, whatever that word is, wavelength. Um, it's just a few wavelengths up from an X-ray or a gamma ray.
Oh. That's crazy.
And another thing, out of all of the colors, it's the least likely one to be found in nature. But usually, if it is something purple in nature, a lot of the times it has like an exotic tie to it.
Well, and now I'm thinking,
So,
like, not many flowers are like dark, dark purple that I've seen. Like morning glories are dark, dark purple, but most time they're like light
yeah,
purple. Like the shooting stars and stuff around here are light purple. Like the snapdragons aren't the dark purple.
yeah, but if you think of how many color flowers that you have, most of the time they're like orange, yellow, red. Like there's not
Pink.
even a lot of them that are purple. And then vegetable wise, you have more greens, reds, yellows. And it was talking about how eggplant is the only vegetable that's true purple, and like that's probably one of the least grown plants. Like most people don't plant eggplant except for you.
Yeah, they like eggplant. But cabbage is purple. I was sitting here thinking, I was like, wait a second, cabbage is purple, but cabbage actually changes colors. So you're right, it's not
Yeah,
a
and
true purple.
most people, if you think of cabbage, they don't go purple cabbage. Most of the time, it's green. Like that's the more common one is green.
I like purple cabbage more. It has more vitamins in it for you. Okay, so
So
that's
did
really
you
what?
look up black?
Yeah. So black, it says it's formality, dramatic, sophistication, and security.
So that's so funny because like why? I wonder how the tradition of wearing black to funerals started. I know, like, in a lot of cultures, they don't necessarily wear black to the funeral, but they'll wear black afterwards, especially if, like, somebody's a widow to, like, show their mourning period and stuff. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's more so like the lack of color and like the lack of celebration is maybe how it
Mm,
started. But I don't know. That'd be
that's a
something to
good
look more into,
right, now we might have to do a part 2.
right? I just thought it was really interesting to look at like, how it's being implemented a little bit more. Like, the orange Food Network logo and like,
Yeah.
the Facebook logo is blue. It's supposed to be like trust, loyalty, and peace and, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I also think it's funny that, like, the area that you live in could play effect in it too because, like, I know in Sedona, Arizona, there's a big thing because their city ordinance, and I don't remember the whole story behind it, but they can't have McDonald's, golden arches can't be golden. They're like a teal color because it goes against the city ordinance.
What? I have not heard that. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, so, like, the city has, like I mean, well, like, in Jacksonville, Oregon, you can only paint your houses certain colors and stuff to stay within the historic thing. So, like, city ordinance of that too, like, you can't have certain color Christmas lights up. They have to be I think it's just white. But anyway, like, isn't it funny how that is controlled too. Like you can't paint your house certain colors in certain towns, and that'd be
Yeah.
interesting to look up to like weird laws. That might be a fun one.
Like, in general? Or just, like, weird laws
Yeah.
associated to color? Oh, man. There's some
Well, I
weird
mean, in general.
there's, like, still laws. So, like, Butte Falls, if you kill somebody's cow, they can still, like, throw you off their tree. Like, that's still a law out
That's
in
fun.
Butte Falls.
Well, I know there was a little town. Oh man, I can't remember what state it is now, but um there's still a law on their thing that if the seniors in high school ride their horses to school, um, that the principal has to take care of them. And so the last week of school, all these senior kids rode their horses to school, which it's like a a modern town. So that's like not the norm for this area. But they rode their horses to school and tied them up in the school's front yard to trees and walked into the principal's office, and the principal had to go buy hay and stuff and feed and water and take care of all of these horses for this week. Like, it was a really funny thing, like, it was all over the news and stuff, and it was because the kids had learned of this silly law in one of their classes and put it to the test.
That's
I
so
bet
funny.
it's since been changed, but yeah, isn't that weird?
That is so weird. Yeah, there's a lot of, like, weird old laws that are still around. Especially here in Oregon because it
Yeah.
was, like, the Wild West and status. A lot of people got here before there was much law or anything, so
Yeah, and that's always funny because then you always think, like, the stupid rules that people have around, and you're like, "Oh, I wonder what the story behind that was that happened that made that law have to be a law."
right? Yeah. Like, there was one I heard from somewhere, and it was, like, you can use a stick to reprimand your wife as long as it's not bigger around than your thumb.
Oh,
Like, I don't know about you, but my husband's got a chunky thumb, like, that sucker would almost be a tree branch.
right? Yeah, I bet there's some weird ones.
But that'd be fun. Yeah, let's look that up. Um,
'Kay.
so we got 5 minutes left. So, one thing I thought was super interesting looking into this is looking at our business logos associated with these colors, I thought was really funny. Like, yours is by the elements, obviously. Yours is purple, right? And then all of that stuff about spirituality and, um, like, ambition and all that kinda stuff I thought was funny. And then yellow, mine is sunflowers and which are yellow and green. And green is nature, and I have peace, calming, freshness, healing, and nature, which I thought was really fitting. And yellow's happy, cheerful, and creative. I just thought it was really funny. Subconsciously, we were picking these colors for our businesses that fit really well with them,
That is weird that it,
right?
like, crosses over.
Yeah, and then like looking at Tyler's logo, he's got a brown bear and it's blue writing. Brown, he's dependable, rugged, and trustworthy. And then blue, it's like business and loyalty and trust, you know?
That is cool. I wonder if more people know about this, and this is just, like, new to us. I'm sure, like, advertisement people know, because I know they talk about that, like you had mentioned with the president's ties and stuff. But I wonder how many people unknowingly do that.
Well, we obviously did. Um, so I don't know. It would be interesting. And even one of the ladies that I was looking up, she even made a comment about like using colors for yourself. Like if you're feeling kind of down and groggy one morning, like wake up and put on like orange or yellow. Help lift your spirits a little bit. Like if you're going to a job interview, she said that navy blue like inspires confidence. So she's like put on a navy blue shirt and go to your job interview. So
Hmm.
I'm I'm really excited to start trying some of this stuff myself and see how it works out.
Yeah. Well, I do know that, one of the most common colors for bedrooms are usually blue, and because it's calming, and, like, the loyalty, safety part of it, people usually sleep better in a room that is blue versus either another color or a white room.
Hmm, that's really interesting. Yeah, this was a super fun topic, Mom. Thank you for picking it.
Yeah, sometimes I have good ideas, even though most of them are yours.
Well, it's just all stuff I'm already interested in. It's like, let's talk about it. But this one was cool. I'm gonna use some of this and paint my bus and see if I notice a difference.
Ooh, yeah. I'm super excited about your bus. Have you named her yet? Does she have a name?